So here we have the 5 sisters. They're visiting 5 brothers. They're having a little card game here. They had a stroll on the grounds, a nice lunch. Later they're going to have some music and dancing, and here are the previews of some of the outfits you're going to see. In the last episode, we looked at the Rococo collection by Acanthus Sims. These are some great pieces you could add for your female Sims. We're going to do a Rococo collection for the males, but then we saw this hair and said long hair, big wigs. That's actually not Louis XV, that's Louis XIV. That was just a little prior to the period we're talking about. Now, Louis XIV, he was a bit of a character himself. He was called the Sun King. He was the center of the universe, and he actually built the Palace of Versailles on a swamp, because who else could do it but the Sun King? Now, he was always involved in battles and wars, but he was also a huge patron of the arts. He loved art, music, and dancing, which is the reason for this title of this film. So just an FYI, most of these are going to be 18th century fashions. We'll have a little bit of the 17th century sprinkled in there as well. But what are we talking about? So here we have someone getting dressed. Actually, he'd be attended to by someone if this were the time period. But we have the hose, breeches, waistcoat, coat on top of all of this, and not the headphones, unless you're a time traveler. So here we have the first brother. He's already decked out in some of these pieces that we've seen. And this collection comes in separates, actually. The tops and bottoms. Here are the breeches. Hose, breeches, waistcoat, coat. In the accessories, you'll find the hose. And also some decorative elements you can add later. Here's the footwear. Now, see this here on the left? That would be more 17th century, and the one on the right would be more 18th. We have some hats here we can add, and some decorative items for the neck as well on top of the jabot. That's the ruffles here at the neck. So there are a lot of color swatches. We're just going to change the color swatches around a little bit before we add the decorative elements. The sash, this would be in accessories. Here's the ribbon for the wigtail. Changing the color. Red. So, an interesting thing about red is actually it was a very expensive dye in the 18th century because it was only available, the best quality color was available from insects imported from Mexico. And these red heels. Now, anecdotally, the red heels apparently were popularized by Louis XIV. Remember, the Sun King? And only members of the nobility could have these red heels. And if you were out of favor, you could not wear them. Anecdotally, but interesting. So here we're looking at this gold ensemble, and we just wanted to show you how you could change the accessories around a little bit to get a different look for the same basic style. Have we mentioned the swords? Well, the swords, this is probably a ceremonial sword, but highwaymen were a problem. So you could be traveling in your carriage, someone would pop out of the woods and stand and deliver, or, offer your goods. So, in France, of course, this was still problematic, but they actually had a constabulary called the Maréchaussée, I believe, and so it wasn't as problematic. But in England, even the Prime Minister was robbed, and the King, I think, was it William III? Anyway, the highwaymen were making such a nuisance of themselves, he actually had the road between 2 palaces lined with lit oil lamps to dissuade them from hanging out there. So, these are the interesting parts of history. And another thing, in the 17th century to the early part of the 18th was the golden age of pirates, and these were people like Blackbeard, Calico Jack, and Bonnie. They generally met bad ends. Except for Henry Morgan, I think he was actually made a knight and given the governorship of Jamaica. Very strange. Anyway, moving on. So we have another look here, and this braid here down the front of the coat. We're just going to change this. You can look at this hair. And another look. Basically, we're just cycling through to show you all of the different color swatches in here. Now, men and women both wore heels. And another anecdote is apparently this was due to the influence of Persia. And they had cavalry and they had a lot of archers, so the heels would actually jam themselves into the stirrups, and the archer had a better pose, better stand to aim more accurately. So Orientalism was a thing that became very popular. People would have themselves painted in portraits in like various exotic costumes from the East. So the story about the heels, we don't know. That might have been anecdotal, might not have been, but in fact, yeah, men and women both wear heels. Let's see. Looks like we have an epaulette on the side here, and the same outfit in 2 different colors, and red again. So we're just choosing a little ensemble he can wear to the fete tonight. Here is another of the brothers, and we're actually just going to switch the swatches on this. So same basic shape. You can get a very different look just by changing the colors using one of the swatches. You can also accessorize this madly, which we'll see in a bit. This one, maybe the troops are being reviewed by the king or queen or something. Has a ceremonial sash, ceremonial sword. He's probably at a fete at the palace somewhere. We'll just change him into maybe this. But he's really not. That's more 17th century than 18th century. This is more of an 18th century look, but we're just having a party. This could be a fancy dress ball, Halloween costume for all we know. So now in the first episode we did some quick looks for the maid, and we're going to do the same thing with the butler. We're just cycling through some quick looks for him, but we're actually going to go to the basic outfit and then go into accessories and show you how many different looks you can get with just using some of the decorations in here. So this Rococo pink, that's more of an 18th century thing, and here's some gilt along the waistcoat and the cuffs. Oh, so here we have the basic shape. This is what we saw near the beginning, the hose, the breeches, waistcoat. So we can change the color of the hose as you see here. We're in accessories here. We're just going to cycle through some of these so you can see all of the different options you have to actually customize some great looking outfits of your own. Here we have silver and gold in a different embroidery style. Just going through some more of these. Silver, gold. Here we have some sashes, different colors, and also in different styles. And here we are, more sashes. And the gilt embroidery does go around to the back of the waistcoat as well. Now we're taking a look at, here's what we're talking about, the Sun King, Louis XIV, this very long style, at least to the shoulders or even beyond. And these swatches are all available in several different colors. Now we're moving on to more 18th century Rococo era different swatches. Now these wigs would be powdered. This powder is made of starch. It could be available in different colors actually, and in different scents like lavender flower or orange flower, lavender or orange flower. Here we are. So let's go back to the party. Oh, we just wanted to mention this build is from the in-game gallery. It's called Versailles. Now we did mention that the Sun King built the Palace of Versailles and people continue to live there. They just changed the interior. So here we have Marie Antoinette. This was a film we mentioned in the first episode. Some great styles here with Croco style. And there are actually a lot of films you can check out which might be of interest. This is actually a modern film called Kamikaze Girls. The reason we mention this is because the main character has an obsession with everything Rococo. So the next one coming up is based on the life of composer Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, 1756 to 1791. This is based on a novel. The main character, you actually see several different styles on her because she survives for centuries, from the 1600s to the 1990s, I believe. Ekaterina, this is based on the life of Catherine the Great, Empress of Russia. Several different movies on this historical figure. The Scarlet Pimpernel, set during the French Revolution. The Scarlet Pimpernel, we also wanted to mention that in England from the early 1700s onwards with this Georgian period, they had a lot of kings called George. Now a lot of people think that manga adaptations were a 2000s thing, but there were several in the 1970s and 1980s, and here's one of them. And here's the Triumph of Love, based on a play from the 18th century, 1732. Here we have ridicule. This was actually set at the court of Versailles during the time of Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI. Here we have a film based on a novel from 1782 about some atrocious people. And here's another one. This was used in several different ones. One in a film set in China in the 1930s, and one is set in Korea in the 18th century. Back to the fete, anyway. So we're just taking a look at this build. People are playing chess by the fire. Lovely. And the maid is dancing. Very 18th century party. Cards, music, chess, conversation, and dancing. So, we did mention it was called Versailles. We did not have any Rococo interiors for this, but we actually found some right after editing this episode, so that's great. So maybe we'll update the interior of this to reflect the Rococo style. We don't know. We might cover some others CC in the meantime. But anyway, we'll leave a link to all the items in both collections by Acanthus Sims. There are actually several. And we'll leave our party to their fete. So in the meantime, enjoy the collection, happy simming, and talk to you in the next episode.